Let's hear all about Astra Tech.
Astra Tech is essentially three companies that were put together that sits under the G42 umbrella. We have a large population here that is not able to access financial services. So we're in the process of educating them as well, offering them that service.
You mentioned this is a first for the region.
A lot of competition has come up now against us after they've seen that the model works. When I look at what's happened over the last year, what's been announced over the past few months is going to impact us for decades. The bigger risk here is not taking the risk. I think AI is going to make life much better for so many of us, but we have to be very careful to not leave a large part of the world behind.
Welcome to G42 On Air, your front row access to the AI breakthroughs and visionaries transforming our world. From the heart of the UAE, here in Abu Dhabi, G42 is a global pioneer in AI and cloud technologies, tackling society's biggest challenges, from healthcare and energy to climate and the frontiers of space. So how do we turn AI's potential into practice and purpose? Join me, Amandeep, for this special podcast series exploring groundbreaking innovations, why they matter, the responsibilities involved, and if these solutions can be scaled worldwide to maximize impact for all. And in today's episode, we explore how fintech, comms, and AI are converging to bridge gaps in financial inclusion across the MENA region. And who better to talk to us about this than His Excellency, Dr. Tariq bin Hendi, who is CEO and board member of Astra Tech. Dr. Tariq, let's hear all about Astra Tech to begin with.
Yeah. So there's a lot to say. Let me tell you what it is in a nutshell, and then I'll kind of expand from there. So Astra Tech is essentially three companies that were put together that sits under the G42 umbrella, and that is botim, which is something most of the population in the UAE, wider region, and large parts of the world know already. That's the VOIP app that we've got, the communications app. Then we've got another business in the middle called PayBuy. PayBuy is our merchant business. It's acquiring, it's issuing, it's doing everything A to Z in terms of payments, wallet, and all that infrastructure. And then we've got a third arm called Quantix, and Quantix is our lending arm. And that feeds into the PayBuy and botim ecosystem. And it's actually an interesting journey in terms of how those three businesses have come together and why it is that they were put together under the Astra umbrella. And a lot of that revolves around the fact that this VoIP platform, this communications platform, which is the first legal platform in the UAE, right, grew exponentially in terms of user base, but also reach. And so what we found was that for every one user in the UAE that's on this app, they have anywhere from 3 to 5 people internationally that use the app to communicate with them here, right? And so we thought, we've got this really powerful tool. We've got a lot of users, right? I mean, we have over 150 million lifetime signups to botim, right? We've got almost the entire population of the UAE on this platform.
That's a staggering number.
It's a very big number, right? We've got tens of millions of active monthly users, unique active monthly users, right? And so if you're sitting on this essentially gold mine of users, right? It's like, well, how can we service that user base beyond what is already available in the market, right? And so what we've landed on is that we are a communications tool that is evolving into a fintech communications platform. So we will always maintain that VoIP, that telephony service through the platform. But what we're starting to do is we're starting to bring in a lot of the unbanked, underbanked is where we started with, right? And now we've gone from 0 users able to access financial services, right, in that category, to now almost 3 million KYC'd and registered individuals able to now participate in the financial economy, right? And this is a massive milestone, not just for us, but also for the UAE. We have a large population here that is not able to access financial services. They can't get a bank account. They can't do anything other than a transactional relationship with any entity. And so what this does is it gives them a single platform, a built-in wallet, a way for them to communicate with their families while they're talking to them to let them know, hey, by the way, I'm going to transfer some money to you, or I'm going to borrow some money, I'm going to do different things, all from a single interface, single platform in their hands, right? And we've seen massive growth once we introduce this.
Dr. Tariq, I appreciate your very comprehensive answer because it really sets the scene for us. There's so much to unpack there with you. Very intriguing, as you say, no kind of advertising. I certainly hadn't heard about it apart from being in this ecosystem with G42. So fascinating kind of word of mouth success and recommendation from peer to peer. You mentioned it's a comms tool evolving into a fintech platform. Did the inspiration for something like this come from somewhere else? I mean, this sounds like a pretty, unique journey, no?
Well, I mean, it's quite, if you think about how fintechs grow generally, globally, right?
Mm.
You come up with an idea, you then try to look for a customer base, you look for investors, you hope that you get some really good shareholders, and then you really pray that the regulators don't take too long to license you, right? I have all of those things already, and I'm sitting with a platform that has all these users. And so it's a natural evolution when you look at what it is that the UAE has been focused on going forward. And that is, how do you make everyone in the country part of the economic story of the country beyond just a functional aspect, right? And so you have a lot of people helping to build this country that now can access tools that they previously were not made available to them. And this is where we believe the strength in botim as an app, right, in terms of its reach, but then adding on these financial tools really changes the game for not just the fintech landscape, but also the communications landscape. Now, again, this is not a unique platform in terms of what may exist in other markets, right? There are some very large companies internationally that have done this, but then there are some that sit on a treasure trove of customers who have not been able to evolve into the financial services segment because the pivot hasn't happened, right? That inflection point hasn't materialized for them in the same way it has for us because people have more options in those markets. Here, and in large parts of the global south, there are a lot of people that are left behind by financial institutions. So 150 million plus users, very active, very engaged users on our platform. We understand what it is that the market has been looking for and what leadership has been striving towards. So it makes a lot of sense that we then incorporate this into the business. Now, it's not without its complications, right? You've got regulatory requirements that you have to maintain. You've got the trust that you have to build with consumers, right? Customers, some of these customers from a financial inclusion and a financial literacy standpoint are not familiar with borrowing. They're not familiar with how it is that you transfer money using an app instead of standing in line at an exchange house, right? And so we're in the process of educating them as well, offering them that service, better price, better service, easily accessed through their phone. And after they run the transaction, they can then call the family member and say, hey, guess what? I just did this. And I think it's a source of pride. It's also a source of inclusion. And for us, that's really, really important. And part of our agreement with Citigroup, when Citi essentially put their faith in our platform to deploy $500 million into the UAE market, right, to lend to that group of previously unlent to individuals, right, is a testament to not only the infrastructure we have and the shareholders that are a part of this business, but also to the fact that they believe that the UAE has a positive outlook going forward, and these are core individuals that help in the growth of the UAE. And so, for us, honestly, it's a source of a lot of pride. It's a source of a lot of responsibility as well. And putting those two things together is really, really helpful, I think, for what it is that we're helping to stimulate in the economy.
Again, so much to explore with you there, Dr. Tariq. We're gonna just launch into some of them there. Big words, inclusion and responsibility really kind of baked into your business model. But to go back to that question about identifying this opportunity, it speaks to your entrepreneurial vision, but also execution, that you were able to kind of latch into that opportunity and make it happen. You spoke there about the unique ecosystem here in the UAE,
Mhm.
the vision from leadership as well as that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
How influential was that in the design of your vision here?
So look, I can't take all the credit personally. There's an amazing team of people at Botim that believe in this mission, and I am privileged to be a part of that team. We also have shareholders and stakeholders, internal and external, that believe in that vision. I think the way that I look at this, and if I take an individual that leaves their home to come move to the UAE to work, right? You just said it, right? Entrepreneurial spirit and so on. They're all entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs take a bet either on an industry, on a country, on a sector, right? These are folks taking a bet on the UAE, that the UAE is going to give them a better life than what they might have back home. And it's our responsibility to be able to enable that, right? Now, we have to be responsible with how it is that we help people achieve their goals, right? If an individual has never borrowed money from an institution and therefore has no credit history, we have to be able to educate them in terms of saying, look, these are the repercussions if things don't go well, right, in terms of behavior. But this is how this is going to enable you going forward, right? And so that bridge, that interplay between fiscal responsibility, giving people access to funds that they never had previously, is actually something that we've been able to manage and capture quite well. Now, if I look at the evolution of that, new products that we introduce, expanding the consumer base that we cater to, all of that comes from the demand that we see through the platform. The beauty of Botum as well is that I can run a survey on my platform and get feedback from 1 million people almost instantly. And so that helps drive a lot of our thinking. We also understand strategically, what it is that's happening in our market. We see the struggles that a lot of other institutions have. And so whereas the large financial institutions maybe look at us as the little brother, right? The smaller fintechs and those trying to grow look at us as the big sister, right? And so it's how do you put those two things together and really help um, not compete, right? And you can use the term, co-opetition if you want to, right? Where we're competing, but we're, almost collaborating with each other on some of this. It's a healthy competition. But I do think that we are more than competing with the incumbents. We are actually opening up new segments for them at some point because as people build their credit history with us, we're then able to feed back that history into the credit bureau and help individuals graduate from what would be a very small loan to maybe opening up a business, right? And at that point, either we expand our product offering to cater to them, which is something we have in the pipeline, or we graduate them into a financial institution like a bank that might be able to help them with that. So for us, I think about this as almost like a school, right? And that we're educating a lot of people on the benefits to being involved, but then also telling them how it is that they should be careful, the impact that has on them, both positive and negative, based on the behavior that they demonstrate. But I could go on and on about this because I actually think it's a very interesting segment. Word of mouth is very powerful in terms of what we've done so far. But if you don't show up every single time for that customer and you are not reliable as a platform, that's going to be the death knell of any business. And that for me is why I'm so thankful that we have the team that we have because they live this every day. When something goes down, right? It is a scramble, let's focus on getting this right, let's rebuild this, and let's make sure that that trust with the consumer is always maintained at the highest level.
And I think that real key word there, trust, it really feeds into what you mentioned earlier, the kind of family relationship, the big brother, the big sister. It does feel like here in the UAE we are part of one big family, but the it's very interesting that you have identified that people are left behind. People don't have access to funds. For a business model to have that ethos is very admirable, and of course comes with its own challenges as well. But to create something with that responsibility and that kind of ethos of actually bringing people, elevating them and giving them access. It's very intriguing. You mentioned this is a first for the region. It begs the question, why hasn't it been done before?
I think it's a question of time.
Yes.
I think it's also a question of perception.
Mm.
Our region, I mean, forget about the events of the last 6 months in terms of, President Trump coming to the region and all of the major announcements. I mean, it's a source of pride for us, not just as Emiratis, but everybody that's been part of the story in the UAE, right? I mean, the UAE was not built by only Emiratis. It was built by everybody that calls this place home. And so when I look at what's happened over the last year, right, in terms of the growth, the evolution, the potential, what's been announced over the past few months, is going to impact us for decades, right? If I go back some and I look at what the perception was of maybe the region 20 years ago, right? People are going, okay, are you sure you want to take a bet there? Everyone's only focused on real estate. People are only looking at being there for 2 years and then leaving. That has changed entirely. I'll go off subject for a moment. I did my PhD on the labor markets and I focused on this region. And I initially had started the research on wages to understand what were the determining factors that led to wage differentials between nationalities, education levels, and so on. And what I found very interesting is if you tracked individuals over time, so people that moved here 30 plus years ago, depending on what boom was happening or what depression was happening elsewhere, the time period that they stayed here, depending on nationality, ranged anywhere from 2 years to 5 years, sometimes 7. If you look at that now, it has gone from 2 to 5 to 7 to 17,
Mm.
20, 25 plus years, right? What that says to me is that not only have we gotten the foundational components right as a country, but we've gotten the service offering right as well. People are concerned with safety and security. We
Mm.
offer that to them here, right? People are concerned with growth, with jobs. We offer that to them here. It's a competitive market, right? And what we've seen is that this market has gone from no one willing to take a bet on it on the venture side, on the tech side, to now everyone trying to bet on it. The amount of dollars coming into the country from outside looking for opportunities. You look at some of our competitors or our peers in other parts of the region, all are securing hundreds of millions of dollars of balance sheet from international banks that see this growth. They see that it's not a 1 year move, that this is a multi-decade directional growth, and they want to be part of that. That for me is where I think we've gone from no one really wanting to take a bet on the entrepreneurial side to now everyone wanting to be here and drive things. And what that's done is it's increased competition. It's made us have to stay on our toes, either from a product standpoint, a customer engagement standpoint, back to that trust point again. And what it's done is it's forced the incumbents to now look at ways that they can participate in that segment, which to me is the biggest plus out of this entire exercise, right? And honestly, without a long-term vision, none of this materializes. And so I'm very thankful for that. But I also think that um, enablement, that initial push, you look at it in Abu Dhabi with Hub 71, with some of these other initiatives, you went from no one in that sector being here to a lot of people being here. I think it's very healthy for us in the region. People will move around, more people come in, grows the customer base for me at botim, right? And so we are expanding our reach. We're expanding our product offering. And again, I'll say this on this podcast, the new version of botim that's coming out is going to be the first wholesale change to our platform in many, many years. It's going to be AI native. But what we've tried to do is we've tried to marry simplicity, that inclusion component, right, with your ability to communicate to your loved ones, right? And so I think that shift now, right? So people will be very happy with the VoIP communication side of this, but also it'll be very seamless in terms of your engagement with the app in terms of financial services. One thing that is wonderful about what we provide as a service is that most individuals under a certain income level here struggle to open a bank account. Once they KYC on our platform, right, and they are then verified, which is a very short process on the platform, they immediately get a wallet on our platform. That wallet offers them a virtual IBAN, which essentially puts them into the financial economy
Mm.
at that point, right? And that wallet ecosystem that we've built allows them to do everything from remit back home to make payments, to issue a debit card, to access a credit card. So we've got the entire full suite of products built into that, the Botum app that you can then utilize.
But again, to emphasize the point you said earlier that your client base, some of them maybe a large portion of them, are unbanked and underbanked. So to identify that, to serve their needs, to have that ethos baked into your business model is admirable. And then to be able to scale that up. And of course, as you say, you're very open to understanding the complexities, having the responsibility built into there. And this notion that going forward in the future, it sounds like a very exciting view of the future. You mentioned there's a couple of things that have changed, have evolved.
Yeah.
Let's get into some of that technology there.
So one thing that we introduced on the app actually a few months ago that I'm not sure maybe you've noticed or many people have noticed is we've offered now something called Botim AI. So built into the app in the existing structure, when you go in, you have a search bar at the top that has multiple LLMs on the back end, right? And so if you go in and you search, you're actually accessing some very significant models on the back end. You don't feel that as a user, right? You're just getting the answer. But what we've done is we've offered that for free to everyone. And that will continue to be free to everybody on the app. So Botum AI powered by multiple AI platforms, essentially. But what we've done with this new app that I actually think is really interesting is that as we evolve over the next few months and few iterations, so is we're incorporating AI very seamlessly into the platform. So at some point, a user will be able to go onto that app. So for example, you're deciding on where you want to travel, right? You want to go on holiday somewhere after the summer. You can go in there, go into the Botum AI segment, type that in, say, where's the best place to go in September? It'll come up with answers. We'll give you a financing option. We can book it for you. We can organize everything through the app. And that is the state that we're moving towards as it relates to the app. Today, we have a lot of that functionality in terms of being able to give you that answer, help you with the financial instruments, and essentially pre-plan this for you. But that's just one example. Eventually, what we will get to is we will get to a state where I, as an individual, if I want to plan for retirement, I have an AI agent that is designed based on what I want to speak to, that will talk to me in my language, right? And will help me with that journey from not having been engaged to being very engaged. And I know we talked about unbanked or underbanked, right? But I basically have the entire population of the country on my platform. We have a lot of people on the platform today that might be banked, but are not happy with the way that they're
Mm.
banked. Or if you think about freelancers or entrepreneurs, right? A lot of them struggle to get financial service. Our wallet system allows them to be able to do what they need to do. The next step of this, obviously, is to move from a retail offering to a business offering. And that's part of our plan and part of our trajectory over the next 12 to 18 months. So there's a lot on the tech side, on the back end, that my very large tech team are building and putting together. And eventually what we will see is that AI will become very incorporated into the way that you talk on the app to your family, your friends, your loved ones, but also in how it is that you engage in terms of what's the smart thing to do with my money.
And I think it's really intriguing for us to hear the details about how that tech is evolving and being developed by your team, and that vision of being a one-stop shop, basically leveraging AI across the whole experience. And you mentioned something there in terms of retirement, which I really don't think, Dr. Tariq, you will ever retire. I feel like your entrepreneurial vision and brain will just carry on ticking away. But this notion of what's happening here, again, bringing it back to the UAE influencing this model as much as you influencing the landscape here through this business model as well. If there's something quite unique about that crossover, isn't there?
It is, and I think what's also very unique about the environment that we operate in, and I've worked in government, in the private sector, quasi-government.
Mm.
None of it sleeps. Not government, not the private sector. Everybody's engaged. Everybody's trying to move not one step forward, but 10 steps forward. And I think what's been created here in terms of enablement, right? Whether it be regulations that need to be adjusted or adopted for a certain, industry that didn't exist. If you think about, for example, crypto tokenization, none of that existed. We had one of the first regulatory bodies in the world in the UAE to help govern that, right? Our regulators are very forward thinking in terms of adoption. You think about stable coins and how it is that you use stable coins with remittances. All of that's built into our platform. So there's a lot there today in terms of adoption where you don't forget the legacy, right? What's been built, the infrastructure, the architecture, and so on. But what AI is forcing us to do, whether we do it on an iterative basis or we just go one shot, let's just transform this, right? Is it's forcing us to rethink the way that we not only engage with each other, but how it is that we engage with apps like Botim. What purpose does it serve us in the long term if it's not giving me the services that I want? What's
And
an alternative, right?
I'm curious about your use of the word legacy there, because often the UAE is described as a place that leapfrogs legacy, is able to create a
Yeah.
blueprint, a blank canvas. So it's intriguing in that model. And it begs the question, if someone's tuning in and thinking about possibly being inspired by your model, how do you have checks and balances in place if you have got, as we've said, an admirable business model to serve underserved communities, people left behind? If they haven't got those, let's say, approved credit ratings, how do you as a business ensure that you're not kind of exposed?
Well, one, we're happy to take that exposure, right? So we've decided that there's a certain risk level that we're happy to tolerate. But interestingly, there's a lot that you can learn about a consumer from their behavior or a consumer's behavior just from their device. How frequently do you charge your phone? Are you the type of individual that lets it run down to zero, or are you constantly charging it? How many apps do you have on your phone that are other financial services apps, right? These are indications for behavior. So we are able to pull through customers approving this, right? Up to 4,000 different data points on an individual's behavior just from their device.
That's remarkable.
It is. And it has a lot to do with your behavior on the device itself, right? So charging is a very interesting one, right? The way that you charge your device. There's, an argument that shows that someone is actually very responsible. Others will say, well, I'm just a busy person. I don't have access to a charger, right? That's probably not the group of people that we're catering to anyways, right? So I think that when you take that and we've refined our risk model, because ultimately this is a business, right? So you can have an altruistic agenda, but it's still a business in terms of how it is that this needs to function. And so if I look at the risk models that we have deployed for the segment that we are catering to, we actually have built such a good relationship with our client base that so many of them come back. They top up, they re-engage, they use different financial products on our platform. What's been challenging a lot of the time is the interface. We fix that now with the new launch. It's not it The bigger risk here is not taking the risk, right? I don't want to sound cliche there, right? But no one else is willing to make that bet or hasn't historically done it in the way that we have. A lot of competition has come up now against us after they've seen that the model works. Even very large incumbents are launching products which seem out of line with maybe what their traditional businesses are because they see that we've been able to build a lot of traction, but a lot of growth. Our growth has been a significant J curve, right? And I, I believe that that will continue into the future as we expand the segment, we expand the product offering, and we constantly tweak our risk model based on how people's profiles are changing.
And I really value the fact that you engaged with that question, because, again, I think it's insightful for us to learn how you're mitigating against those risks. But they're well thought through, as I can see, but also being appreciative. You are a business and one needs to function as a business. And in this ecosystem, learning about the technology and the tools that you're using to help you, naturally, those 4,000 data points on any individual AI is being leveraged to actually analyze this. So it's baked into your model. Um, the ecosystem of G42, you began our podcast initially describing that, how you come under them. So let's go back to that
Yeah.
point.
So look, it's actually, I don't think I have a better shareholder in terms of enabling everything that we want to accomplish going forward, particularly on the AI side, right? Just look at the announcements since May, right? I mean, everything from Stargate to all the infrastructure being built to all of these wonderful businesses that sit under G42 that power some of what we do, right? That, the business intelligence side, if you look at the reach, if you look at the compute, these are all tools that we utilize as Botim and as Astra to be able to drive the business forward. And I suppose in many ways, the the business wouldn't exist in the state that it is today if it wasn't for those enabling factors that predominantly come from G42. Now, don't get me wrong, we have a lot of partners, right? We work with the top tech companies, we work with a lot of financial institutions. You have to when you're in the ecosystem. But from an enablement standpoint, from a support, right, from a growth standpoint, honestly, it's been so good being associated with G42. And ultimately, this was their vision, right? G42 had a plan for how it is that we should tackle consumer finance in the UAE, the broader region, and those countries where a lot of people move from to the UAE, right? And so this was a natural platform. So going back to the comment I made earlier, why the pivot from communications to fintech? I mean, you've got all the user base. The hardest thing to do as any platform is to grow your user base and then retain your user base. We've been able to do both. And so it is a natural segue into all these other products. But G42 has been absolutely critical, extremely supportive, critical in terms of our growth, right? They had to be there, extremely supportive, and and they keep you honest, right? It is a business. You got to make sure that you're driving the right behavior, the right growth, but people matter, right? I mean, if you listen to Peng, right, the CEO of G42, the founder of G42, talk about anything, it's this constant choice between enlightenment, right, or being left behind. And so for us, it's how do you take that as it with what the vision is for G42, take it forward, and how do I apply that to how people engage with each other and how it is that they engage with financial instruments that will hopefully make their lives better. And that is our goal.
And again, that really circles back to how we started today's podcast, that motivation, the inspiration behind Astra Tech and how you launched Botim, the evolution of Botim. But to circle back,
Mhm.
people and the notion of not leaving anybody behind, both in the tech revolution, in the AI revolution, in the consumer finance revolution, comms built all in there. And you mentioned there, and I know having had the experience of speaking to you across the work that you do here in the UAE being a home to such a diverse population, but a home to everybody, and G42's ethos to really kind of launch things here, scale up globally, and Botum and Astratech are really key and core to that ethos and what you're executing. Dr. Tariq, we've talked about the vision for the future for Botum, but broadly speaking, it's really hard to look in the crystal ball and look at the vision for the future of AI. But if we had to end on that note, and certainly in terms of your areas of expertise, where do you see our journey going?
Ooh, our journey is civilization or our journey is Botum? Because I can give you one answer much easier than the
You
other,
give
right?
me both answers. You're
I
such a
think
great
that,
speaker.
and so look, I think that if you look at AI as an alternative intelligence, right? An amplification of what it is that we do. I think sectors like healthcare, all the things that we generally take for granted, right? Logistics. All of this is being changed and transformed by AI. Think of the creative industries, right? The amount of things that can be produced today by AI, where previously you'd have to sit with marketing agencies and you'd sit with all these graphic designers. 5 minutes, you've got some incredible things that you would not have thought of, right? And so I think all of this complements human ingenuity. Nothing is going to replace our need to engage with each other. And if I take that as a core thesis of how humans engage with why we exist, right? What is one of the number one causes of death now in so many places, right? That is becoming a more significant issue. It's loneliness,
Mm.
right? And what we've done as Botum, right? And I'm not going to say that we're the cure to that, but we are a communications tool that allows people to bridge that potential issue that everyone is worried about with AI. Oh, AI is going to replace us. AI is going to make things to where I won't have a job. AI is going to be very difficult for us to navigate. It may control everything that we do. I actually don't think that that's where we're going. I think AI is going to make life much better for so many of us, but we have to be very careful to not leave a large part of the world behind because AI is very expensive. It's very real. And if you can't afford that, you may be left behind. And there are a lot of countries that can't afford the infrastructure. They don't have the relationships. They don't have a lot of those things. It is incumbent on us. It is one of the key missions when you look at G42 to grow into Africa, to grow into, to basically dominate the global south, but to be as relevant as anyone else in the discussions with where all of these things are happening with AI. And so I'm not trying to be philosophical here or talk about kind of the state of things. I suppose my view for the world is that AI is going to help us make much better decisions, is going to simplify things. We'll be able to use our brain power for things that actually matter more than menial tasks, right? AI will eliminate the need for us to focus on any of those things. And if I can build that into my app and make sure that people within seconds are able to do the things that they want to do, I think 2 years from now, just by looking at a corner of the phone and money gets sent, or, it calls someone that they love, then AI has played a great role in helping us be able to bridge that divide between people. And it's made sure that we've not left anyone behind because they can access it through our app.
Dr. Tariq, I really appreciate the fact that you took a philosophical take on that question, which was so broad, but I appreciate both you sharing your personal journey, the professional mission, what Astra Tech and Botim are achieving, and really kind of bringing it in line with what we understand for the G42 ecosystem. And here in the UAE as well, a historical look at what the country's achieved, but we're looking ahead to the future as well. I will just end by saying, clearly, we do need to have you back on the G42 On Air
Thank you.
podcast and hear more about Botum and all the successes that we wish you. Thank you so much, Dr. Tariq.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and see you for the next episode of G42 On Air.